Hello and welcome to the Indie Bandits podcast. Or if you're joining us live on Twitch, you can see us waving because we have nice faces and everything. If you haven't joined us before, so if you are new to this, we're doing a little bit of a marketing clinic. This is going to be a regular series we'll do, and we'll cover just a bit about some of the basics and fundamentals of marketing with a focus, obviously, on marketing indie games. So I'm Joe, and I'm joined today by Jimmy. As if you're
Oh,
watching, you've seen him. If you're listening, you've just heard him. And we're weighing this at the minute because we're looking to find a sort of a format. We'll play around with the format as we get feedback. So obviously, if you do listen or watch back later on YouTube, if you're joining us from the future, then feedback is very welcome. We want to make this as useful as possible for indie game devs looking to market their game. And before before we move on to what we're talking about today, which is funnels, which I know this is the big draw content that you've all come for, but trust me, it'll be worth sticking around for and listening to. Thought very quickly just reintroduce ourselves. We'll do a short version. If you want to hear the long version of who we are, then you can listen to the first episode, which will be very soon available on the podcast feed and on YouTube. But if not, and you want early access to it, available to all our patrons. So if you support us on Patreon, then you can get some goodies early on, earlier than the rest of the riffraff, I guess. So, as I said, joining me is Jimmy, and you want to do the TLDR version of who you are and why people should maybe listen to you a little bit?
yeah. My background is in content marketing and copywriting. Been doing that for over 10 years, probably 11 years now. And it's pretty much all I do every week. Do marketing strategies and content marketing strategies for lots of different sizes of businesses. Um, I like to think I know what I'm talking about a little bit when it comes to that sort of thing because I get paid to do it.
Fair enough. Well, I was hoping you'd rip a bit longer because I'm pouring myself a beer, but I'll tell you who I am as well. So, for about a similar time, Jimmy and I know each other from school back in the day. So we don't have a ulterior motive here. We're not like in some kind of professional relationship. We're just two pals. But since we both graduated at about the same time, I work in translation with a specialization in business and marketing texts. And for the last decade or so, I've been translating and copywriting a whole heap of business and marketing materials. So I also like to think that I know a little bit about what I'm talking about as well. So, well, we'll keep each other right anyway, won't we, Jim? That's the
Yeah.
yeah. Two brains are better than one. So sometimes we'll say we don't want too many cooks spoiling the broth, do we? Anyway, the this is our second session of the marketing clinic, and in the first one we actually looked at our State of Independent Games report that we've put out. That's available on the website now. If anyone would like to check that out, that's just we pulled a lot of our followers in the final quarter of 2021, and we've got all the data for that together, and you can read that at your leisure to see where where devs are and what they're doing and whether or not it is working. And if you want to hear more on that, then obviously you'll have to go back to the previous episode where we discussed that at some length. Actually, I think we had a good 90 minutes chat about everything in that. If you want even more about that, we've also got we'll have content rolling out across the website as well with our insights and analysis on what we found out from that report. So we'll move on to funnels now because we kept mentioning it last time, Jim, and we kept saying we'll do something on them. So we'll start with the first episode in earnest, or the second episode in our marketing clinic, and discuss the marketing or purchase funnel. So I'll tell you how I see it quickly, and then you can chime in, Jim, because I'm getting thirsty doing all this talking. But basically, the purchase funnel is just a model to understand how a customer goes from basically finding out about your product, in this instance it be an indie game, and the stages they go through in order to purchase it. It's sometimes called like an ADA model or AIDA model, which is awareness, interest, desire, and action. We'll talk about those in a little bit as well. But the idea is initially you're a freshly it's you've put this in my head now, Jimmy. This analysis of birth canals or something, but basically, you are new to whatever product you've seen. You're a freshly jellied consumer, and and by the end of this funnel, you should be an actual customer of the product. Can you come up with a less disgusting analysis?
Well, I mean, there's no real need to come up with anything else. Essentially, everyone starts life at the top of the funnel, and what you want to do is push everybody further down until they pop out the bottom as a customer.
Honestly, I had the birth phase in a different part of my miracle of life conversion
I think
funnel.
we should also mention that marketing is definitely one of the worst offenders out there for being acronym happy. So
Oi.
do not worry about understanding all the acronyms. We're going to explain all of this in sort of way that everybody should talk about it, but marketers love their acronyms.
It's an
There'll be a
academia
few of
thing,
them.
isn't
It
it?
is. It's definitely a snobbery thing, and it's annoying. Yeah, it doesn't matter. We might mention them, but we'll break them down in ways that everybody should be taught.
It's yeah, it's jargon at the end of the day. It's words
Oh
that,
yeah,
are shorthand for describing concepts like this. The idea of this being a funnel, it can be anything you want in your head as long as the idea behind it is that the person is moving along a sequence from becoming aware of a product to buying it. It
yeah,
wouldn't have to be a funnel. I think in the last episode I likened it to people on a train going to a destination. But
yeah,
either
yeah.
way, it's the idea of the progression. But I think the reason they like the funnel is because it starts wide and narrows, which is an important part of
Yeah.
the whole idea behind it.
A
What
sieve would be better, wouldn't it? Really, that you put loads of stuff in the sieve and then
it filters out.
filters out until you're left with what you want at the bottom. But then sieve doesn't sound quite as good as funnel.
And then you'd need multiple sieves, and then you'd be kind of like distilling whiskey, aren't you? I mean, if it was the whiskey distillery idea, if you were just going, that's the idea. You basically start with a lot, and as you progress through each phase of it, unless you've got excellent conversion rates, you are likely to lose some people along the way. That's how it goes. That's kind of the whole
Yeah.
idea of this.
But yeah, that's we'll jump into it, but don't worry about the acronym.
Well, should I chuck some more acronyms at everyone then? Because it's also sometimes called a conversion tunnel when you're looking at e-commerce, which for a lot of indie devs will be the case because a lot of your and jargon alert touch points will be online because most indie devs distribute their games digitally and don't have a lot of physical or tangible actual touch points with consumers. But that works in the same way that you have the funnel. Different segments of the funnel have different names, but the conversion funnel has top, middle, and bottom, which is nice. That's a very clear, geographical representation, but marketers weren't necessarily happy with that, and they've gone with tofu, mofu, and bofu. Right? Like, what are they? What are they playing at?
Yeah,
It's
I mean, I mean, it makes sense obviously when you know it. It's like I understand why they do it, but just one of those things where it just seems like a lot of people spend more time figuring out what's a good acronym and trying to use it as often as possible than actually worrying about whether or not it's like a worthwhile thing. I mean, is it?
but it's all
They love that.
marketing, isn't it? It's all sheen. It's got to have some pizzazz.
How's your Mofu content? Ah, it's
Exactly.
good. It's so good, but the Bofu's not doing so well. Ah,
exactly. Well, obviously, as consumers progress through this theoretical funnel, they encounter what we call touch points, which are essentially every moment a consumer interacts with either you as a brand or your product. Basically, any moment something happens is with both parties, it's a touch point. Care to elaborate any further on that, Jim, or do you think I've absolutely nailed it? So I think
I
I've
think
absolutely
there's
nailed
nothing else. Yeah, every
it.
time you engage with your customer on any level, it's classified as a touch point, and there's some number in sales where I think you need like between 7 and 11 touch points typically to get a conversion from somebody. So you kind of just say hello to them one time, expect them to buy your product, which is the whole point of the funnel, is that you create a funnel which means that you are engaging with your customers at different stages, with different types of content that fits the stage they're at. So we'll get into it, but quick rundown would be tofu, TOFU, top of funnel content. That's pretty much everybody starts at the top of the funnel. Then you've got MOFU, which is middle of funnel content. That's content that's designed to do different things. So top of funnel might just be purely brand awareness related stuff like social media posts or a bit of advertising or um, some essentially social media, I guess, in this instance. Middle of funnel would be stuff that's more engaging. So it might be trying to get someone to subscribe to a newsletter, um, or download something that you've got. Then bottom of funnel content is when someone is primed and ready to purchase the product, in this case, an indie game. You want to be hitting them with some content that's job is to convert that person from where they are into a sale. And the whole point of the funnel is the different types of content don't work as well on people at different stages of the funnel, which is why there's 3 different stages. Bottom of funnel content is not going to work on somebody who's literally just come across your brand for the first time, and vice versa as well. The top of funnel stuff is not going to encourage that person who's already engaged with your brand, already signed up, already loves the idea about your game. Another tweet is not going to make them buy your product. It's about creating a journey for your customers so that at every stage of their engagement with you, every touch point they have with you, you are pushing them further and further down the funnel into the point where they are ready to buy, and then you give them some content that encourages them.
And by the point they're at the bottom of the funnel, they should be, ready for your
Yes.
product. Essentially, that's you're prepping them for the actual action. By that point, they should need very little convincing. But also at that, in the same way, the purchase point, opening your wallet, is also the stage that always requires the most convincing, because that's always the almost the highest investment action that they're ever going to have to do. Because in most cases, all the other touch points are free. It's it's very rare unless you have like a pre-purchase, but not going to muddy the waters with that. As you progress through the funnel, you're getting them to do, I guess, more and more offer up more and more commitment to your product, to the point
Yeah.
where you know they are absolutely ready for it at the last stage. And then, I mean, it's that they're hotter leads by that point. I guess you could say
Yeah,
they're
you've warmed them up, haven't you?
yeah, you
But this funnel idea should um, paint a clear enough picture that sharing a screenshot for Screenshot Saturday or a wish list link for Wish List Wednesday or whatever, any of these hashtags that are well engaged with on Twitter, doing that every so often is not going to result in the conversion you want it to result in.
no.
Because all of that is top of funnel. You need to set up, even if it's a rudimentary, we're not talking about like, oh, you need to set up some ridiculously elaborate conversion funnel where you've got multiple pieces of content for every single stage and you've got it all planned out. I
And
mean, obviously, the more
automation
you
and stuff.
do, yeah, like the more you do, the better, obviously, but just understand that there is this stage, this process you need to work your customers through, provide them with value at every step of the way, so that when you do push out those sales messages to the people at the bottom of the funnel, they are far more willing to purchase your product. So if you're wondering why your tweets aren't working and why you're not seeing huge sales off the back of your Facebook messages, this is why.
Yeah, these are the socials are very top of the funnel. These are people who have, you know, maybe they have engaged with previous tweets or previous social media posts, but they're, and I'll get into this in a bit, but they are still very much at the top of the funnel. They haven't really shown any. Well, they've shown a very small amount of willing. I'd say they've not. Then it'd be hard to say these people definitely want to buy the game because they clicked a little heart on their phone or their their computer.
It's
This
a
is
very easy thing for someone to do.
exactly, and as and you can gauge how interested a potential player is in your product by how willing they are to engage with your content. Obviously, content that's very easy to engage with, a like on social media or a retweet, that's very cheap to a consumer. They're not investing much. They're not investing much of their time. They're not investing any money. They're not really committing to anything. It's you can like thousands of social media posts every day, and it might be in products that you're very interested in or you like, but it's not quite the same as like giving your email address to a particular product or a game or a studio because you want more information from them. At that point, the customer is actually further engaging with the brand or the product and saying, I like this, I want more information. That's like a higher value action than your likes or your retweets or all this social media stuff, which is good, obviously, like different parts of the funnel, but you can't have them stay there. That's it. There's a lot of sadly a lot of this stuff we do see quite a bit where people have stuff that seems to perform very well on social media, but there's no further movement. There's it's just you know top of funnel content followed by top of funnel content.
Yeah, yeah. And that should be part of the process, but not the only thing that you're doing, basically.
Absolutely. So I've got a little list here, and I thought we could align this funnel to maybe a an indie dev, and we've already alluded to what kinds of content line up with what part of the funnel. But I thought we could also talk about some of like offer up some advice and maybe some common mistakes to avoid because sadly we see a lot of it, and like we saw on in the report last time out, we there's a lot of devs not doing enough marketing, and that lines up with how happy they are with the success in their in their in their indie games, which is a huge shame. So you mentioned top of funnel content being like your socials. We've said it's very cheap and easy for consumers to engage, and it's a very broad appeal. I think that the funnel imagery is that you start broad and you narrow it down. There's a lot of people who might have a passing interest in your game, but the ones that number will get smaller as you work them towards purchase.
Yep. I would say as well things like blog posts and press releases, things like that are top of funnel. The idea behind it is to create general awareness that you exist and your game exists or will exist, so that people know about it before you knock on the door asking them to buy it.
Yeah, and
I think there's a
oh
lot
god,
that can be done here. Like games, I feel like when you're making a game, you are literally making interactive content, and there should be tons of screenshots and gifs and um, like concept art and all little bit like vlogs you can do, updates to the community, all that sort of stuff is like all stuff that you're working on all the time anyway, and there should be basically a never-ending stream of that sort of content going out across all of your social media channels.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter if it's not like super refined or super polished. I think a lot of times, like obviously anyone creating anything will be nervous about putting it out there. That's understandable. But if it is work in progress, like indie game fans know that. It's the reason, most of us who enjoy indie games, we like this closeness you get with the devs, the fact that they're accessible, the fact that you can see their journey, the fact you see someone like putting work into something. It's like, it's like watching the artist paint rather than just seeing the final product. And I don't think there's any amount of that kind of content that would ever be too much, especially at
No,
the top of the funnel, because that's where you want it to be broad. That's how you get people in the door. Maybe you'll put out a lot of stuff. That's kind of the idea. It's broad strokes at this point, but you'll find one person who comes across one cool bit of concept art you've done, and then they'll want to find more. They'll want to like they might want to move themselves along, as long as you've got a strong call to action attached to this. People, somewhere to find out more information. You go, here's this cool concept art I did. Tell us what you think, or go here, go there. Move them along. Someone interested will do that
definitely.
if you tell them where to go.
Yeah,
So that's the one of the biggest problems I think I've seen in the few years we've done this.
a lot of problems as well come across it. At least this isn't indie games, but with the people that I work with, a lot of the times when it comes to promoting or putting in content out there, one of their worries is they worry that they're over promoting or oversharing. But I can promise you right now, organic reach on virtually any platform is pretty much terrible. So you are not going to be bombarding any one person's feed with too much content. They will see a fraction of what you put out there, which means you should be putting as much out there as you possibly can. And as you've just pointed out, if I'm interested in a game and I've seen a couple of screenshots, I'm like, oh, that's cool. Then I give that guy a follow or, go find them on a different social media platform. I'm going to want to see more stuff from them. I'm
Yeah,
going to want to see more screenshots. I want to see a new trailer. I want to see a new feature that's being added to the game like all the time. I don't care if they post 20 times a day, if it's cool updates about the game that I'm interested in. So if there is any part of worrying about over promoting that's holding you back from sharing your stuff, then I would say that I would not worry about that whatsoever.
well, consider the consumer, and this is a lot of what the funnel is about, thinking about the journey the customer goes on before they make that purchase. Somebody who is going to be annoyed by seeing two screenshots of your game in the same day
Yeah,
is never going to purchase the game. If two
yeah.
screenshots of the same game is going to annoy them, then they are never going to buy that game, because they'll.
If anything, you're wheedling them out.
Yeah, exactly. This is the back to the sieve. That's what you want. Someone who thinks you're posting too much is not someone who will probably want to play your game. If that's your
Yeah.
limit for content from the game, playing the whole game is gonna be way more of that.
A quick hello to Metal Multiball in the chat. Hello.
Oi oi. There.
Did read that right?
Yes, yes, you did. Got uh, got their username up there to help us out. But yeah, it's a lot of a lot of letters too close together for me. I should have put my glasses on as well, but I was scared about the glare. I mean, great content for podcast listeners there. I'm not wearing glasses, James is. I mean, I guess that's how you can tell us apart now. We do it that way.
You've gone for the sort of nice bright white background, and I've gone for the very moody dark background.
Exactly. Well, we said this last time that we've definitely done a kind of a conscious out of an early cartoon. One day you'll have to dress up with little devil horns, and then I'll have angel wings on, and then people will think we're completely different kinds of streamers.
Nice.
But yeah, anyway, back to the funnel, I guess. And we're talking about this broad content and oversharing. There is no such thing as oversharing
No.
if it's about your product. What I would add as a little asterisk to the end of that advice is, like, let your personality shine through in your social media, but keep in mind what it's for, because I think there's a lot of I find a lot of accounts that are maybe, and this might just be my, this is my own opinion, but accounts that are supposed to be for games and don't actually tweet that much about the game.
Oh yeah, no, definitely keep the content relevant. Yeah, yeah.
I think relevance is probably the key word here. It's yeah, like literally tweet about your game, or post about your game, any appropriate verb for the social media platform you're on. Promote that game as much as you like, because that's why people are here. Obviously you can post things about your life, but like really it should just be that should be like a little veneer over the top of the core content, which should be the game. I mean, if the social media serves to sell this game, then make sure the social media is posting about said game. Obviously a little behind the scenes stuff is cool, and a lot of people like to engage with the dev, but it's almost like, be careful about what you posting about. People have personalities and have opinions, and that's absolutely fine, but there's sometimes accounts you see where they haven't posted about their game in a good week, and they're kind of, maybe it's like, maybe set up a different account for social media, like a personal account and a game account, because there will be people who are just here for your game and not
Yeah.
necessarily you
I,
as a personality. Relevant
yeah.
content, as you said.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, that's not to say don't let your personality come through, and definitely do that. Um, and humanize the brand a little bit. You don't just want to be a logo, but he gets to know the people behind that logo. But keep the content related to the game. Don't let it spiral off to become just
Ranting about the
another,
latest Marvel
yeah,
movie or something
like an
every week in the grid.
overshare social thing about your personal life. Like, yeah,
You can
people
have a
have engaged
personal
with you
account.
initially. Sorry,
You can have a different account for that. You could
you can,
even
yeah, you
you
can
can
do
even
that, yeah,
tag
just
that. You can say game being made by this person. Follow this
yeah,
account for like the eggs I had this morning, and then you can have that personal account as maybe like a lower level, further along the funnel content. People who are like really engaged with you might want to follow that,
yeah.
but really, you know,
They're there for the
drive people
game,
where
aren't
they
they?
go. Yeah, if people are there for the game, then have accounts, have socials for that. And this is a though I might add to that. I was saying another one of the big problems I find is that there's a lot of I'm gonna say that the funnel stalls. That it seems that there's a lot of like top of funnel marketing, and it forgets to move people along the funnel.
Yeah,
People get there and then they just get more of the same type of content, this like broad content, and I don't see a lot of like following up or engaging with like interested parties. You don't see the people who, after everyone's like liked or retweeted that thing, I don't see much kind of, hey everyone, you all seem to really like this, sign up to my mailing list.
yeah.
Literally recapturing those people who've seen that, have shown that interest.
Plus, I think that's a really easy one as well. If I'm looking at your stuff on Twitter or Instagram and I'm really enjoying the screenshots, and then you tell me, oh, by the way, we share like a big update every week on where the game is with extra screenshots and like mini trailers and gameplay videos, and there'll be a video like a vlog there as well. Like, if I can get access to more exclusive content by signing up to your email list, then I'm going to do that. And it's a really easy thing to just ask me for that.
Yeah.
Ask me to do that, sorry.
What's the
Like,
worst thing that can happen? Like they say no. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
Like
And
it's
having that data as well is so important. And it sounds a bit corporate to say that, but like
no, but
if
it's how it
you're on
works.
Twitter and then they for whatever reason you've got, like, say you've got a decent follower on Twitter and it's going very well, but for whatever reason Twitter decides to ban your account, then you're screwed. But if you've gotten all those people to sign up to your email newsletter, that's yours. You own that data. You own the emails. You can then get in contact with those people and stay in contact with those people on any number of platforms, and obviously mainly via email,
Well, we
and
mentioned this
keep
last
that
time, didn't
community
we?
alive.
Don't live on rent. Don't build your house on rented land. Sorry, I think is the analogy you said last time.
Yeah,
But
don't build your
the
house,
mailing
but
list.
build the paths that lead to your house on rent. Definitely do that.
Mm-hmm. But the mailing list is it's like these are like powerful. I think the mid level is probably where indie devs. I don't want to say fail, but it's the
To do
tier they
more.
ignore. Yeah, that's where it's from what we've been doing this for like 3-4 years now, and I've seen a lot of like marketing from indie devs, and you know, fortunately, we're a very engaged audience because like our roles in Indie Bandits is to celebrate independent games. So we are going to engage far more than the average consumer with every indie game we come across. So we'll jump those levels. We'll see top of funnel marketing content, and we'll go straight to the game. We won't be like, oh, we'll check that out. We will wish list like everything we see, but that's because of what we do. We're not the average consumer here, and there's not much follow up even for us. A lot of times, there are people who show off a game, then I'll show interest in that game. I man the socials for Indie Bandits, so I'll show interest in the game and reach out to the devs. And I'm not doing anything cheeky like saying give me 1 million free copies of your game or anything like that. Just engage, and nothing. There's no follow up. There's no kind of, well, this party could be interested in my game. I should definitely make sure they don't leave without trying it or buying it. Obviously there are those that do, but the mid level is probably the most underrepresented part of the funnel. And
Yeah, because everyone's doing the social stuff. Well, even then, I would argue probably not enough, but they are doing that, pretty much everybody. But then you get to, and then they're all sending out messages saying, like, buy my game, please. But it's that bit in the middle that turning someone from just aware of your game into someone who's about to pay for your game. That's definitely the area that needs the most work.
well, that's it, and it's the misplaced messaging almost. Like obviously you can tell people to buy your game, but you're saying this to people who you have no guarantee are that interested in your game. You this is bottom. Telling people to buy the product is bottom of funnel, and you're doing that to people who are top of funnel, which is not the moment you really want to be doing that. You want to move them along, maybe get the email sign up. This is a you know get them to wish list. That's totally get that. You can announce your game, tell people to wish list, check that they're going through and wish listing, because sadly, like on platforms like Twitter, there's loads of engagement around the content itself, but there's not necessarily a lot of conversion from it. Like the liking and retweeting is very cheap and easy, and people do it a lot.
Yeah.
But the numbers that actually even just go. It's only one click more, really. Click on the link and then click wish list. But that's like one click too many for a lot of potential players. Like they won't. They'll maybe like it because the picture's cool, but they're not gonna open a new tab and wish list. Like
Mhm.
there's a lot of drop off at that point. So if someone takes the time to like even reply to a tweet and say that looks really good, this looks awesome, reply to that and say thank you very
Like
much,
get
it's out
engaged.
then,
Yeah.
please go wishlist it because you'll be told when it comes out, or if it's already out you can go here it is, here's the game. you know Even if they're not going to purchase, then you can go, oh well, wishlist it because then you might see when it's on sale. You don't know how interested they are at that point, but move them along to the next stage, because if you don't, then that person just like or the classic shopper who walks in and says, I'm just browsing.
But that is everybody at that early stage. That is all we're doing,
Exactly.
and nobody wants to be like accosted by someone trying to just shove a product down your throat. So even if you are interested, like it's the same if you were shoe shopping. If you walked in a shop and you lingered on looking at one pair of shoes for a little bit longer, and the salesman, you obviously like them because you've lingered on them, but a salesman comes running over and is like, "I can get those in a size 10 for you." You're like, "Oh, sod off, man!" Like
Yeah.
just leave us alone. I'm just having a look. I'll come to you if I need the help. But if if that salesman came up and said, "Oh, um, this is a bad analogy," but if they came over and said, "Oh, by the way, if you give us your email today, we'll be able to send you a 10% discount voucher on any purchase of any shoes if you were to come back into the store," and they'll be like, "All right, cool, yeah, I'll do that. I'll give you my email." And that's the same sort of thing. What you want to do is essentially creating all these different lead like calls to action to move someone from the first stage
The
that they engage
awareness.
with you all the way through, yeah, and provide them with different content for each of the stages. So if you shoving loads of socials in front of them, which is great, and when you get them into emails, don't just do more of the same. Do something a bit more to make them more aware of your game and maybe go a bit deeper into the game. Learn to love the game a little bit more. Get into the minutiae of what you're doing and all the reasons why they're going to love playing that game. Then, after all of that, if they still haven't converted into a sale, maybe then you can maybe you can do a discount yourself or a sale or something. But essentially, what you want to do is just keep them engaged all the way along. And if you're seeing that that's an engaged individual, he likes your social media post, he retweets every so often, um, you get replies and you engage with those replies as well. Like you have to play that game as well. Then they're in your emails and you notice they've opened every single one of your emails and they've clicked on links as well within it, and they visit your website. That is someone who is primed
Yeah.
for a message whereby you tell them, look, if you want this game, here's a demo. I mean, the demo is like the ultimate thing for you to have as bottom of funnel content.
Yeah.
Is like it's unbelievable. That's the take the car home and drive it for 7 days before you
Yeah.
buy it situation. Like if there's one thing to come out of this, of all the stages and all the bits and pieces of content you should have, is make sure when someone is at the bottom, you have a demo. You have something for them to try to give this game a go, because that's going to be,
That's a tipping point.
if everything else has done 50% of the job, that's going to do final 50% in terms of whether or not they're going to buy it.
Oh, absolutely. Back to your just as a reminder for your shop analogy. Eh, remember when you and I both worked in a high-end department store, James? I don't know
Do
if.
yeah, yeah.
Well, do you remember?
Oh,
I worked
worked
at
in
inverted
you know,
commas, but our student jobs. We
yeah.
worked in. We both worked in a department store. I actually worked in two, not at the same time. That would be impressive and sitcom esque. But what I do recall is when you see the person browsing and showing interest in the product, the rule of thumb was to make them aware that you're there, not like jump out and scare them or anything. Just you know, tell them
That
that
was
you're
a lot more
there.
fun to do it that way.
I know it was. Sundays were cool. Anyway, instead, just let them know that you are there and available to offer help to them if they want it. Because like you were saying, these customers are very like top of top of funnel. They're not necessarily at the point where they're willing to buy.
Mhm.
Whereas if you let them know, then they have that touch point. They have the interaction with the sales assistant who tells them that, if they do want more information, if they want to like take this journey from awareness to purchase, one step further to like interest and start like asking questions about the product, then they can come to a salesperson who is going to give them information about the product, not necessarily try and sell them the product. When the person,
Answer questions, yeah.
and then obviously by that point, once they've started talking about the product with a sales assistant, that's when the sales assistant will start saying, so do you want to buy that one or do you want to buy another one? Because they've moved down the funnel at that point. They're literally, the sales assistant being, you know, an actor for the company or the department store, but they have moved that customer from awareness and interest in the product. Now they've got the desire to buy it. They've shown interest. They've had, the touch points in this case are the conversation and the questions they're asking, and then they finish up with with the sale. That's when when they turn around the customer going, so do you want it in this color or that color? That's when you
Yep.
put push them across the edge. Do you want to try the shoes on? That's the point where they've said,
Yeah.
do you have these in my size? You haven't said buy these shoes. I saw you looking at these shoes. Buy them. No, that's a that's a very cold lead who's not quite interested in your shoes right now. But that
Yeah.
doesn't mean they can't be.
No, definitely not. It's just important to make sure that you have different ways to engage with anybody who comes across your game at different stages, and with the idea of each little touch point nudging them closer and closer to purchasing. And take the time to sit down and figure out what all of that is as well. Because if you just sort of throw these things together ad hoc, or you do it like in a half-assed way, it's probably going to deliver,
Poor
you know,
results.
substandard results. Yeah. Um, so it's better to, if you are going to do this, and you should as well, the data shows that this will help you sell your games, then just make sure you take the time to do it properly. Consider where your top of funnel content might be, what channels you would use to deliver that. Same for middle of funnel and same for bottom of funnel as
I mean, it's quite easy to do as well. You don't need a degree in marketing or a decade of experience in it. Like
well.
the good thing about marketing is that it's the study of how like consumers react to the materials and actions of brands or products. But all of us are consumers, and I can guarantee that most indie devs have bought a game before, and
Yeah,
even just a bit of you know self reflection, thinking about how think about the last game you bought and go, how did I find out about that? When did I start thinking about buying it? What did I see? Did I go onto a YouTube channel and start watching videos about it? Because if you're watching like the trailers or something, you've sought this out. You can guarantee that either the studio or the publisher has put that trailer in the hands of that outlet where you've watched it. You can see where they are. You can see how you react. I think the problem is that obviously with everything else they've got on their plates, making the damn game, which is no small feat. The Well, I was going to say the importance of it's all important, but the important side of marketing is overlooked or missed, and it's a lot of thrown together stuff that hasn't been necessarily thought out. There's a lot of just like we've mentioned, all the levels of marketing all at the same time, all through the same channel. And
yeah. And according to the statistics that we've seen through the report that we did, which had a lot of people giving us their response, it's not working. Uh,
no,
for those that are trying to be to create like a viable commercial product, which a lot of people who create games are, they're trying to do it to make money, as well as obviously create a project they're proud of. But it's not evil to say that they are also trying to make money from it.
no, not
And
at
if
all.
that's the goal, then you have to do the things that you're not doing, which according to our report is people aren't doing marketing, and when they are doing marketing, it's not working because they're not doing it properly. So whatever preconceived notion you have about whether or not you think you need to do it or not, you do need to do it,
Yeah.
and you need to do it properly as well.
I mean, the analysis uh, showed that it's not as successful as they wanted it to be. Their marketing or their games weren't as successful as they wanted them to be. And the example you always get, this is in like your first marketing class, is that Coca-Cola and McDonald's still advertise tons. And this is always the example I
Market
like
leaders.
because yeah, these are the people who literally, if someone said name a cola or name a fast food restaurant, it would be on the tip of everyone's tongue. Sorry, the front of their minds. It wouldn't be on the tip of tongues. They'd say it. They'd know exactly what they were thinking of. But this is because they have an ongoing marketing effort, and this is beyond bottom of the funnel. This is the re-engagement. Coca
Yeah.
Cola and McDonald's do this because they have customers, and this is the one part of the funnel we haven't really touched on that much because from what we found, indie devs are struggling to get players to the bottom of the funnel. So, post sales and re engagement, we haven't really had time to talk about because the other ones are so pressing. But if you get someone, like we said, when someone interacts with your content and says they like your game, if someone buys your game and you get that person, through the funnel, then you have one more thing to do, and that is the post sales, that is the re-engagement. This is the kind of person that if you make a second game, that they will be like first in line to buy it because they remembered the good experience they had with your first game, or they're leaving a review which will feed in and act as a touch point for for another customer, a customer who is like in the interest phase, someone who starts looking at
Yeah.
your game. It's not technically your content, but it is your content. Reviews are a marketing tool as well, and can act really as like, well, top or middle, more for me, more middle of funnel content because you've got
Yeah,
someone
it's
who's
sort of transitioning, isn't it? Like case studies and reviews, depending on the industry, can be the thing that tips someone over into buying something.
exactly
Probably
so.
less, possibly less so in games, but very similar though. Like I will read reviews of games, and often that will be one of the last touch points I have before purchasing a game.
Yeah,
So it's
they're
very
already
close.
interested in the product by the time they're reading reviews.
Yeah,
So it's all a rich tapestry. I mean, the touch points diagrams are something that we'll have to talk about maybe some other day because that turns the funnel into a kind of like 3D structure with all these like touch points sticking out the side of it like a game of Kaplunk, if you have a if you can imagine
mm,
that
yeah, yeah.
that potentially niche board game. But yeah, I mean the take home is, because we'll probably have to start wrapping up, but the take home is think about the journey every potential player will go on. Obviously, you're gonna have to generalize a bit, but if you do your research and touch points are useful moments to get information from potential players. You can sit it these are your interactions. These are where you can actually find out what the customer is thinking before they become a customer. You can see where people drop off, in the modern era with the internet and all these, all the tools we have at our disposal. You can find what percentage of people engage with your content, what percentage of people decide it's time to sign up to your emails, what percentage of people move through and wishlist your game, what percentage of those end up buying the game. And from there, you already have a kind of like a visual representation of what your funnel looks like and how wide each of the segments in it are. And then from there, you can see what is and what isn't working. If you get maybe 50% of people from awareness to interest, well, you're doing great. But if then you only get like 0.1% becoming players, well, then there's something either, something bottom of funnel that's not working as well as it should, or maybe you're going at them with bottom of funnel content too early.
Yeah, so you can always tweak stages and the different touch points, and you should always look at the response customers and your audience have to what you're doing to sort of guide you, because we've all got ideas of what we think works best, but it's your audience will let you know what works.
Easiest way is to ask them, isn't it? If you have an opportunity
Yeah,
to actually hear what it may not make for nice reading or nice listening what they have to say, but it can be really useful to see why certain people are dropping off between sections of the funnel.
well, it could transform your business overnight, couldn't it? If you ask everyone who subscribes to your newsletter or all of your fans on Twitter, followers on Twitter, sorry, um, what sort of content would you like to see from us, or what's the reason you haven't bought our game? And they cut, and like everybody comes back with a very similar response. So you can make that change very, very quickly, and probably see a massive boost to newsletter signups or wish lists or even purchases. Worth asking. You never know. It might be one tiny little thing that they want to see that you haven't even thought of.
Yeah, and then it's hard to see. It's hard to see from from the inside. That's the kind of thing. Obviously, you have to try and visualize what a potential customer or player could want, but you've also you are one person with one opinion, and we know what opinions are like. Everyone's got one, and you see this an awful lot where there's this kind of idea that the dev has their opinion and their vision, which is completely fine. But they also, I think, have an idea and a vision of how they should market their game as well. And there's this kind of like aversion to I guess marketing it in a traditional sense, for not wanting to be like a sellout or a suit or something. Indie games are very cool because of the fact that they're independent of like massive corporations. But
Yeah.
that doesn't mean some of the things they do can't be valuable to an indie dev. There's a reason these massive corporations are so successful, and part of it is marketing. There's also a lot of shady practices, which we'll not get into, but marketing
Yeah.
is also a large part of it. And I think that
Yeah.
a lot of indie devs would do well to almost copy or imitate what works. That
Yeah,
like you
you don't
said,
have to
it's
come up
not
with something
evil.
brand new. It's been done before.
So yeah, I think we'll leave it there, because I mean there's a lot of food for thought for indie devs. Just imagine your customer's journey, and remember how warm they'll be to the idea of your product. It's there at various stages through this theoretical funnel that they travel through. Their journey will go from having never heard of your game to hopefully buying it, and your job is to make sure that the content you make at each of these stages is appropriate to what stage this potential player is at. So, don't show them the game for the first time if they've clearly been interested in it for months and are just wanting to buy it. At that point, you want to be telling them to buy it, but don't tell them to buy it if they've never heard of it. It's very unlikely, unless you have some excellent materials at hand. It's unlikely that someone who's just heard of it will just buy your game on a whim. And if they do, there's not enough of those kinds of consumers to uh, make a success of it.
Yep.
Anyway, this is where we move you down the funnel and start shilling some stuff to you. So obviously, if you've listened to this as a podcast, then please leave a review, or if you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast. You just know what to do. You've been on the internet before. There's a reason at the end of every YouTube video someone asks you to like, comment, and subscribe. This is all part of the funnel that we've just been talking about. If you are a dev and you enjoy what we do, then we do have a Patreon and Ko-fi, and you can support us on that. You can throw some money our way. If you're watching on Twitch, then we do have the nice call to action underneath me, asking you to support us on Patreon. There's some nice perks for those that do, including getting versions of this early before everyone else, so you can get the jump on them with marketing your indie game. And that's all we have to shill. That's the last of us moving you along. So if you've just discovered us, you know where to go next. That's obviously I'm being very facetious in the way I present this, but you get the idea. We're just you know where, if you liked what we did, then you know where to go next, and that's what you're supposed to be doing at every part of the funnel, just directing people in the right direction, moving them on to the next part of the funnel. And I guess we'll see you next time, or you'll hear us next time, depending on your medium of choice.
Yep.
I'm gonna
Speak to you
wave.
then.
I'm gonna wave and say goodbye, so there's something for everyone. See
Bye
you
bye.
later.